Believe it or not, your job can be good for you. And this is the theme of a new report from Business in the Community, which looks at work differently. And it's a sequel to BITC's report from a year ago, which was What If Your Job Was Good For You? And I'm pleased to say that I have one of the authors of the report with me, Louise Aston, Wellbeing Campaign Director at BITC. And we're going to be discussing the thinking that's carried in this report, as well as the calls of action that are going to be in there for employers. So, Louise, I want to focus first on one of the themes, and that's looking at ESG. And talk of ESG has been around for several years, but I've really noticed probably in the last 6 months, maybe 12 months for some people, more reward benefits, well-being professionals telling me that ESG is on their agenda. But mostly when they say that to me, they're focusing on the E of ESG and really very much thinking about environments, climate change, and all things green, which is very important, clearly. But from an HR and well-being perspective, there's actually a lot to hook into from the S, the social part of ESG. But how we go about doing this, it still feels a bit unclear, and I'm not seeing a lot out there of people giving some clarity around that. So this is very exciting, the work that BITC has been doing to get some conversations going, to start to pull some ideas together, some thoughts, some actions. So I'd like to just throw a very broad question to you to start with. Why are you focusing on this?
Thanks, Debbie. So what's become really, really clear is there's increasing demand, particularly from investors, in terms of reporting on environmental and social governance factors. Is what we're hearing from our members and also other stakeholders that we work with is actually, while the kind of reporting on carbon reduction is very tangible and businesses are doing it really well, is there's a complete lack of any reporting around the kind of social and the health and well-being aspects of ESG. And in fact, the environment and social and health are all interconnected anyway. Mm-hmm. And when you think about this, this starts off with people. And if you want to achieve thriving people, thriving businesses, thriving communities, and a healthier planet, you actually need to join the dots between those interconnected issues. So what we're going to be looking at is actually start thinking about producing some kind of guidance which does join those dots up. So no one's done it yet, and it is difficult, which is probably why no one's done it, but certainly there's a lot of demand out there, and it's not just a load of stats. It's actually, this kind of reporting is almost certainly going to need some kind of narrative to frame the kind of stats. But it's all about leading indicators on people, and reporting on mental health and wellbeing needs to be incorporated into that reporting.
So I'm going to come back to that point about leading indicators, but I think you mentioned there about that linking, that integration of the E of ESG, the S of ESG, but you've introduced the idea of H, health, in that as well. So can you just expand a little bit more for where people, this is new thinking, how does health and environment interplay with each other? How do those three interlink?
So, we know, and there's increasing evidence of the well-being benefits of connecting with nature, biophilic design, and access to green spaces. And we also know that there's a lot, particularly with Generation Y, around eco-anxiety, which is causing poor mental health. But there's also the benefits of better air quality if you're adopting active travel. So they really are kind of all interlinked in terms of that whole system approach, if you like.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because sometimes people do silo those quite a bit. So that's really helpful to think about that. So coming back to those leading indicators, and I think that's always the tough one for people to get their heads around. What are some of the things that you've seen coming up, perhaps in the report or in genuine conversations, that people can measure or start to look at when they are trying to get a handle on, are their people thriving? Is their business thriving? Is the planet thriving? Are they investing in the right places? What should they be thinking about?
Well, we haven't done the work yet in terms of the guidance, but off the top of my head, one of the biggest issues that businesses are grappling with is actually attracting and retaining the best talent. And we know that actually purpose-led organizations, that is increasingly important to job seekers and employees. So in terms of publicly reporting on well-being, we know that through our latest YouGov survey, that achieving a work-life balance is actually the most important factor in a job in terms of what potential employers and existing employees are looking for, and also an employer who actually supports their well-being. So in terms of actually being able to report on this, in terms of wanting to be that employer of choice, but also demonstrate that you are absolutely prioritizing the mental health and well-being of your people is really important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So work for us all collectively to do to build those indicators in the future. But you've opened that conversation with the work that you're doing, which is fantastic. A key part of ESG and within that well-being is how organizations are structured, the fairness that people experience at work. But something that you and I have discussed and has been worrying me for quite a while is that growing divide between those who are able to work from home, either their job allows them or economically they can afford to do that, and those who can't. And it almost feels like during the pandemic, we were all in this together. But now that we've come out of the pandemic, by and large, instead of us all being together, it's even got worse. You've got an increasingly two-tier system. What are you seeing happening? Is there an increasing two-tier system? And if we did nothing, what would the impact be?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's fair to say that since the pandemic hybrid ways of working are here to stay. And in our the ITC's recent YouGov survey is actually, the good news is that survey identified that just over half of the UK workforce were able to co-create their own version of a good job, which is really quite a promising start. But, as you quite rightly say, Debbie, is with co-creating ways of working comes the risk of creating a two-tier kind of white-collar, blue-collar system. And, through the same YouGov survey is what we've seen is that those in more senior roles and on higher salaries are likely to achieve flexibility. And we also, from that same research, shows that those who would have most benefited from individualized ways of working are least likely to be able to action them. So we know that the majority of employees are more productive when they have a sense of well-being. And basically the business, social and economic benefits of taking an individualized approach to ways of working are significant, and those are actually laid out in our new report, Your Job Can Be Good For You. Obviously, the opportunity to personalise ways of working will differ in different sectors and across different roles, but we would argue that job creation can be achieved in some form which can be applied to nearly every role at every level. So, for example, a facilities manager might not be able to regularly complete their work from home, but they might benefit from flexible shift patterns. So, as I said in the report, there's a lot more kind of advice and practical actions to achieve ways of working that are good for everyone, regardless of their role or sector.
You've touched there about thinking about work different and ways of working differently, and you used an example from the report. And over the years that you and I have talked about, you've always previously talked about good work, and now you talk about ways of working. So there's been a shift in the way we think about work and how we structure jobs. So I'm interested, we talked about this recently, this idea of personalising work and your job. What do you mean by, why the shift, and what do you mean by personalising your job?
What we've seen is during the pandemic, and perhaps even before that, is people have done a lot of soul searching, a lot of reevaluation in terms of what is important to them, and actually looking at kind of a whole life horizon where your job is just one aspect of that. And also we know that there are more job vacancies than there are candidates, and therefore there's been really quite a powerful shift in terms of the power of employees or job seekers versus employers. So employees can be a lot more discerning, and indeed are being a lot more discerning and demanding in terms of what they want from ways of working. So in terms of employers being able to attract the best talent, is they do need to take that far more personalised, tailored approach. Obviously, in terms of co-creation, the sweet spot is where you've got the intersectionality in terms of what works best for that individual to enable them to do their best work, but obviously within organisational kind of policies and parameters. And the real kind of key person in this is the role of line managers in terms of being able to use their discretion in terms of agreeing what that way of working should be for that individual. So that trust and that autonomy and that agreement is so vital.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge, because I think some line managers struggle already to talk to staff and think differently, and we'll need a lot of support and development and coaching and so on. But we've fundamentally, as you are touching on there, need to think about work very differently, organizational structures quite differently to benefit. Because my view long term is this will be good for everybody, and hence the report about work can be good for you. But it's quite a big step change and a very exciting time in the history of work where we are right now, and the opportunity ahead of us.
No, it's actually we've just got a brand new chair of Business in the Communities leadership team, Javier Shav, who's Chief Financial Officer at Heathrow Airport. And under Javier's leadership, where we're aspiring is your job must be good for you, otherwise you'll leave and go and get another one.
Fantastic, Louise. Well, I can see that being the name of the next report potentially down the line, but let's get our heads around this first report. So really excellent speaking to you today. Clearly this piece of work from BITC is opening a lot of good conversations among business leaders, but I think from our point of view here at REBA, we support what you're trying to do and to try and get this conversation in front of HR benefits reward professionals who want to move the dial on employee well-being and really make a difference. You've got to look at jobs themselves. So great talking to you today. I'm learning a lot. I'm looking at this report and talking to you, and hopefully a lot of other people would. And exciting times at the moment. We're also doing a lot of other videos for the Employer Wellbeing Congress 2022. So anybody watching this video who's learned a lot from conversation with Louise and myself today, if you want to watch any of our other videos, we'll put the link up at the end of the video. But right now, thanks, Louise, for joining me today.
Thank you.